And by the way, if this dies at some point, and my audio cuts out, just please let me know so that I can switch the microphone. So yeah, and just to recap for people on the recording, Maria was just asking about the meaning of letting go things. What does it mean to let go? Does it mean to redirect the attention? Does it mean to what does it exactly mean to be aware and let go of whatever thoughts or emotions or things? To me, it is sometimes it's not something that you have to somehow do. It's actually something that you recognize the doing that is happening, and you kind of let go of that doing. So whether sometimes it's a thought, and usually when we are following a thought, there's something we're doing. There's something of like following that and going into that. But when we practice the mindfulness, we just recognize it, and just in that act of seeing it clearly, we somehow a bit of space should feel like there's a bit of space which is created around it, because before it was like we are here and we are in it, but recognizing it, maybe we are a bit bigger than that, and what is appearing, whether it's emotion or thought, and just in that seeing clearly, there's kind of also this act of ceasing the doing, of stopping the doing, just by releasing and seeing that. And so as we practice the mindfulness more, that automatically starts happening. Whatever we're aware of, we're also releasing in that moment, and we're kind of open and curious to what happens next. So it's not about, okay, we follow it and then we do something else in order to let it move away, but we see it, and then okay, what happens next? Okay, maybe it's something which is related to it, but it's also already a different thing. Maybe the emotion is here. Then there's the tightening in the chest, and there's some thought, then there's something else. So we're just curious what is happening by nature.
Yeah, that lands. That makes sense. Yeah. What's interesting to me to note is that, usually like all of my emotion is sort of, or the way that it's become recently is that like there's the emotion and then the rest of the body like feels really light and whatever. So like turning attention away just feels a bit like, oh, like, but here's this pain spot that I'm not taking, like this is the part that needs attention and the rest is like all fine, so I don't need to focus on it. But I guess like, yeah, there's still that need to fix in there, and like I see what you're saying about like observing that need.
It's important also so it's not about not focusing on it at all, but just allowing the awareness to move by itself a bit. So we always feel we need to direct our attention, and that we are doing it very intention, like, okay, now I'm going to focus on my neutral feeling of my leg. Okay, now I'm going to focus on the uncomfortable thing. But see if you can just kind of let go of that a bit and see how the attention moves by itself already. So it's moving by itself, and we kind of like encouraging it to just move to whatever is the most obvious. So if the very strong thing is the most obvious and the attention goes there automatically, that's okay. We just somehow don't dwell and get sucked into it. We let it be, and then maybe something else catches your attention. And catching your attention doesn't mean that. So even if you notice something, that's already your awareness moving. You notice that you are hearing. You don't need to, okay, I'm going towards my hearing for a few. You already notice that it's already present. And this is also in some different healing modalities. Like we never try to focus too intensively on the cause, but we're always kind of flipping between something more neutral and sort of resourcing and coming back to the intense thing. So if we stuck too much in the intense thing, usually there's a lot of resistance and fighting it, and it's difficult because we really want to solve it and we're kind of there and doing it, and there's this kind of not really letting go attitude. But if we somehow also recognize there's a bit more neutral things happening, like, oh, you have pain in one knee, okay, you also recognize sensation in the other knee is somehow just also more neutral, and then you go back to that knee, and it's kind of resourcing and back and forth, and not ignoring anything, not completely, not suppressing it, but also not getting sucked into it. And so that's noting a little bit, but also with the body scanning, like we're moving through the body, but we're not getting stuck somewhere. Like we can explore a little bit, some pain, some discomfort for 30 seconds or so, but we keep moving the attention so we don't get stuck anywhere. And then we come back and it's already different next time. So it's the same with the body scanning, but also with the noting. We don't get stuck. Okay. Oh, now I can hear. I think you're on mute now. You're on mute, Maria.
Yeah. I was just gonna say it's gonna be interesting. I'll try it out and see.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, see, I don't know, see what that does in terms of just letting that sit and going with the meditation. Good. Okay. Thank you. Maybe I would like to do a little meditation, and just related to the topic for today. So this is Vedana, the feeling tone foundation. So let's all kind of come together and close the eyes. And just let naturally your awareness just become aware of the experience. And whatever appears is just the nature. So whatever you're noticing, whether it's more the body sensations or the thinking is more active, there's no wrong. Everything is just the nature of mind and body playing out in this moment, moment to moment. And let's also bring in this kind of sense of trust that the body and mind is slowly, when we let it, coming into balance. So when we are just aware of it, and letting go of needing to correct it, needing to influence it, needing to change it, maintain anything, stop anything, start anything. But clearly aware. Whatever needs to happen before we start moving towards balance will happen. So whether some emotions or thoughts or sensations need to run their course, need to appear in conscious experience. We just let them and we are aware. And let's notice, so today the topic is the Vedana, the kind of tonality of experience, whether experience is pleasant or unpleasant or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So neutral. And maybe it's different in every moment, this kind of tonality. But most of the time it's probably neutral. So not needing to force this noticing, not trying to look for whether something is pleasant or unpleasant, but just noticing if there's this kind of tint of pleasant or unpleasant for each appearance in your experience, each body and mind that appears. Whether it's sensation or thought or something else. And we're going to do a little experiment together, which is something which shows very clearly the unpleasant and pleasant Vedana in the body. And we're going to hold our breath together. And you don't have to hold your breath for super long, but just kind of enough to start feeling this unpleasant Vedana, this. So I want you to, when we start in a moment, we're going to just at the end of our exhale, just stop breathing. And we're going to feel, especially in the body, when the body, which maybe now feels more neutral, when that starts to feel more unpleasant, and how that sense of unpleasantness, that Vedana of unpleasant, grows with holding your breath. And you can start breathing again whenever you need to, of course. But I invite you just to see how that arises. And then, so after we hold our breath, we're going to, and you start breathing, you're going to inhale full lungs and then hold your breath and see if there's any pleasant sensation that arises from that. So just to recap, we breathing normally, and then maybe we exhale, hold our breath, and then feel the sensation, the Vedana that comes with that. At the end of the breath hold, however long that may be, you inhale and you briefly hold your breath and feel the Vedana that comes with that. And then you just start breathing normally after that again. So not needing to prepare ourselves in any way, just breathing as you are. And just aware of the sensation in the body. In every moment, it might be different, the sensation in the body. And let's exhale together and hold. And coming back to the normal breathing. If you're finished. Just letting breathing happen by itself. And we're going to try one more time. So fully exhaling, holding, and at some point inhaling and holding just for a few seconds. And just observing the sensation or the tonality of neutral, pleasant, or unpleasant. So whenever you're ready, exhaling and holding. And we're going to do the whole thing one more time. And now see if you can just hold the exhale a little bit longer and really let this unpleasant sensation build. And this is very safe to do. I work a lot with the breath. So this is very safe to do at this length. So really see if you can exhale fully and then hold and really sense and observe the sensation in the body change. And then of course, when you need to breathe again, inhaling fully, holding just for a few seconds, feeling the resulting Vedana, and then breathing normally. And whenever you're ready, exhaling fully and holding. Okay. So you can open the eyes again when you are finished. So would someone like to share? Maybe Jan, I think you haven't shared yet in the chat. How was this experience?
Very interesting. I liked it that it's not some intellectual movement to do in the mind through the body experience. It got intense with time, of course. And yeah, maybe I grasp a little bit the Vedana of negativity.
How did you feel this? Did you feel a shift when, like, did your body feel kind of neutral before, and then you feel this shift into the negative?
Slightly degrading into not so pleasant feelings.
And did you see this was more in the body or in the mind?
I would say primarily some kind of 50 to 50, maybe a little bit more. It starts with negativity of the body, and then it gets more intense in the mind with time. Some kind like this.
And then when you inhaled again?
Yeah, the same procedure, just in the positive way. So release, tension release, and I would say same order. The body release starts, and after that my mind also can relax because the unpleasant feeling declines.
And then so pleasant, and then after some time maybe you start breathing again or something. How did it develop, the Vedana?
It stabilizes into neither positive nor negative, I would say. But it's more positive to be in a neutral state than to be in a negative state.
So maybe there's some lingering positivity or pleasant Vedana in the mind. Like we feel like, oh, the neutral is actually quite great because I can breathe.
Yes. Genau.
Yes, great. Okay, excellent. What does anyone have anything to add to that about their experience? Maybe it was a bit different, or
I had to count to keep holding my breath because otherwise it would just, I don't know. I think like some sneaky part of me would just exhale out or inhale in, I guess. So, but I was noticing the unpleasant. It was more in like my feet being numb, or like, just like the temperature changing and things like that. The breath itself, I think, was a little bit more about like me trying to get myself to do it.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so seeing also, maybe I was thinking that in anticipation of that exercise, there might already be some maybe anxiety or fear, which instantly creates some unpleasant Vedana as well. But yeah, excellent, great. I'm happy, Jan, you gave a perfect model answer that I was envisioning to explain this idea. So yes, we have the Vedana, we have this kind of tonality of experience. There is still the experience of the body, there is still the experience of the mind that is happening, and most of the time it's somehow quite neutral. And then when we change something, we change maybe the breathing, we start holding the breath. Maybe in the first few seconds it's like, okay, it's neutral, and then something tells the body, oh, something is wrong, we need to breathe again, or there's some sensation, there's maybe the neutral sensations of holding your breath, like, the sensation of this something not moving anymore, but then there's also the unpleasant sensations with that attached unpleasantness which come, and as that builds, the body changes something. Maybe the mind intends to start breathing again, or you see the mind intending to, and maybe this unpleasant sensation in the body also creates unpleasant thoughts, anxiety, worry. The mind starts moving more, and so that we see that, especially when there's something unpleasant, the body and mind, they start firing together. So we can never really just separate the two. As you were saying, Jan, the mind was immediately reacting also, and maybe you can tell the difference there between the unpleasant Vedana in the mind space or the unpleasant Vedana that comes from the body. And of course, the same thing also in the positive realm, positive direction. So you can try this again in your own time if you want to, and just to observe this shift. And it's not so important how long you go or something with the breath hold, but just to feel this shift. It's one of my favorite exercises for seeing clearly this dip into the negative and the positive Vedana. So Vedana is the Pali word. I like the word because I don't really like the word feeling tone or feelings. It's not so descriptive. So we have body and mind, and we have this Vedana attachment to all body and mind. And you can think of Vedana as something really that evolves quite, from a very evolutionary perspective. So it's a very natural thing. And when we are a little cell that is not yet evolved very much, and we are swimming in some primordial soup of the ocean. And when there's something good for the system, something that is beneficial, maybe like some food or some particles floating around which we can metabolize, that nervous system experiences some pleasant Vedana, some pleasant sensation which tells it to move towards that. And likewise, also, if something that is potentially harmful to that experience, maybe it's some pain, maybe it's some predator which comes, or some substance which is not good for it, and there's an unpleasant Vedana maybe that is experienced in order to guide the organism to move towards pleasure and move away from the pain in order to somehow metabolize, procreate, etc. And of course that was a very, very basic example, and as we become more complex organisms and human being now, there's many layers of this Vedana, of this positive and negative sensation that we experience throughout every moment of our existence. So whether it's something basic like someone giving you a compliment and you feel pleasant Vedana, but maybe you have an existing relationship with that person and you don't really trust that compliment, and maybe there's some unpleasant Vedana. Or maybe you eat some wonderful food and there's some pleasant Vedana associated with that, but then there's maybe the guilt of the mind because you ate too much, that creates some unpleasant Vedana. So there's many layers, and it might not necessarily be the same for everyone. So what some people might sense or feel as positive, some people feel as negative Vedana or neutral. But we have this deep reaction, or this deep response of Vedana in our mind and body. So this is just the nature of the way things are. But we can start to learn how the Vedana comes in response to different things in our experience. And of course, with that learning comes wisdom of how we live a life, how we make decisions, how we think, that is maybe a bit more pleasant or a bit more neutral, and what things keep making us fall into this very unpleasant sensation of body and mind, whether it's constant worry. If we see this Vedana appearing in things, we see how the mind and body is working. So the Vedana is a very we can create a lot of wisdom with just observing this Vedana, this feeling tone of experience. and start paying more attention to it. So all phenomena of body mind, they always come attached with some feeling tone, some Vedana. You can also think of this somehow as the nervous system, where the nervous system is firing pain, whether it's just sensing neutrality, or whether it's emitting pleasure. Hormones, the hormones of the mind, the serotonin, dopamine, whether that feeling tone is positive or negative. And of course, this feeling tone subsequently creates more other body-mind phenomena in response to that. So when there's something quite pleasant, we tend to kind of move towards that, move with, the mind reacts with some wanting to go more, wanting to do more of that. And as you see, when the feeling tone was more unpleasant, maybe the resulting body-mind phenomena that appeared after that were also unpleasant, where we need to breathe again, let's send the intentions to breathe, or maybe you found some way to kind of use some willpower. So maybe because you set the intention before that to kind of hold your breath, then that intention came to mind again, like, okay, no, we can sit through this, we can push through a little bit more, and something arises in response. So we can see just how the body and mind is working so clearly with that. So the goal isn't necessarily we're not trying to stop this. We're not trying to never have negative Vedana again, but we just recognize the nature. And when we can see the thing clearly, we have much more choice, much more freedom to act, rather than just keep reacting to this Vedana. Because sometimes the reaction to that Vedana can keep making us circling in something unpleasant. So body and mind are constantly influencing each other, constantly working together, and Vedana plays a big role in this, how the mind gets triggered. So of course, when the Vedana is more unpleasant, mind gets triggered also usually in more unpleasant. If the sensation is more pleasant, then so you can think of Vedana as a kind of magnitude of experience, or strength of experience that creates the link. And that's why if you ever did a Goenka retreat, a 10-day Goenka retreat where we did the body scanning, we're always saying that, okay, don't react in any way to whether it's neutral, unpleasant, or pleasant sensation. We keep maintaining just this awareness of what it is, without jumping into reaction, without jumping into more sankhara of constantly reacting to that Vedana. But we are just aware of the Vedana, the sensation, and whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, or neither of those, and continuing to do the thing. So it's the same thing with the noting. We are just aware of what is happening by nature, and we let the thing move, and we don't necessarily do anything with that. We just let it happen. To continuously cultivate this awareness of body and mind. So we have the kind of basic categories of pleasant. Of course, that can be very pleasant or just a little bit pleasant, unpleasant, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant, which is what we call neutral. And those can be both from the source of that can either be in the body or in the mind. So whether it's an unpleasant sensation like pain, if you start pinching and start twisting your hand, at some point you start to feel unpleasant Vedana. So we can start to see this. We can start to see where it comes from, especially when we have the awareness trained to see. And the Vedana is a little bit, as we practice to be a bit more aware of this Vedana, it is a very useful thing because it is a little bit like an alarm bell for mindfulness. So when things are neutral, usually, you know, we're plodding along, things are quite neutral and it's no problem. But as soon as some unpleasant thing appears, it's kind of a signal for us, okay, be careful, there's something unpleasant here. And usually we jump into reaction straight away. So it's kind of like an alarm bell, like, oh, maybe I need to turn on my mindfulness a little bit more to not get caught in this, or to be a bit careful with this. So for example, you know, you're moving about your day and then you start interacting with someone and it's all well and good, but then they say something and maybe you're sensitive in that moment and you feel this unpleasantness appear, maybe in the body, maybe in the mind, but it feels like your experience shifted from neutral to unpleasant. And there's a very crucial moment, because usually, let's say if we're not trying to be aware at all, something will happen in response to that unpleasantness, and we will jump into some reaction. Maybe it's some reaction to that person, maybe it's some reaction to the emotion inside, and usually there's some tension or some discomfort associated, and there will be some tension. And often that means then it becomes more dangerous. Maybe we start to get triggered, or we start to go into a pattern, or we start to essentially act in ways which we maybe don't want to, or isn't really what we want for ourselves, what is important for us. So the Vedana is a very good kind of alarm bell to see that. The same thing with pleasant sensation, emotion. When the Vedana becomes pleasant, often the mind reacts with grasping, with wanting more of that. But we can just be clearly aware when that starts happening, that we don't follow that, or we have the choice to follow that or not to follow that. So maybe if you are eating something very nice, going to eat a cookie and it tastes very delicious, there's some pleasant Vedana. Maybe you can sense that in the body, or maybe in the mind. And if we are just aware of this pleasant Vedana, we don't get dragged into it. But if we get sucked into its lure and things, then maybe we keep grabbing for more cookies, or do things that we don't really want to. And then afterwards, there may be some regret or guilt, or anger at yourself, or whatever it is. And so we're just careful when things become pleasant or unpleasant. Okay, I will just pause there to see if anyone wants to comment or say anything.
Actually, I got a question.
Sure.
I don't know if it's the right place, because maybe it's some kind of philosophical or something like that. But I went to a Goenka retreat as well, and he emphasizes his own approach, and doing the Goenka and the labeling technique at the same time is some kind of not meant to be. So how do you handle this? Do you have some advice to harmonize it, or do you say do the one thing or the other and not both on the same time, or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say in general, don't try to do both things at once, because you will probably not do either of them properly. But as you get a lot of experience, as you understand very deeply what this technique is about and what it is trying to do, and your meditations deepen, actually it doesn't matter anymore what technique we use. Whether it's label, even with labeling, the labeling starts falling away, and we're just aware of body and mind at the moment. And also with the body scanning, you know, in the beginning we do this very formal scanning, but in the longer retreats, Goenka also just tells you, just put the attention somewhere in the body and let it move by itself, and observe the body and mind. but we do the scanning as kind of like a practice, as and developing the sensitivity of the sensation, the equanimity, and the same thing with the labeling. So we use the labeling as kind of like a practice to build this awareness of the present moment in a bit different way. But in my opinion, the things don't matter. The deeper you go, the less the technique matters, because you can't use any more technique because it drags you back into thinking, and so just in terms of practicality for me, I wouldn't practice both. I would just practice one in any given session. But they definitely, if you practice them properly and right, and you understand the principles, they will help each other. And the body, the deeper body awareness, the sensitivity of body sensations and Vedana really helps with the noting, with the labeling, because the labeling noting sometimes gets a bit cognitive because we tend to analyze it rather than really sensing the thing. Whereas if you have a good awareness of the body, it will keep you really with the body and to observe the body and mind appearing. And vice versa also with the labeling, I found that it really helps also with anapanasati and with the body scanning, because we learn also to recognize the more subtle mind states like boredom, like irritation, that really appears more in the mind than, and we can't clearly feel any sensation associated with that. And so I feel that awareness carries over into that technique. But I think they really, yeah, it's good they keep it so kind of pure and okay, don't mix these techniques, because 99% of people would not really understand the principles that underpin these techniques and make their own ideas, and then the technique gets super messy and doesn't really work anymore.
Yeah. Very, very nice. I think maybe the survivability of the Dhamma approach of Goenka is in the focus to keep it that straight. But it sounds very nice, and maybe somewhere on the path everyone meets. So if you practice both approaches, as you said, they meet on a special level. So yes, I can work with that. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you for the question. I think it's also easier. The body scanning is a bit easier, and that's why I started with that in the 10-day course. I think it's easier to understand how it works and how to practice. Noting can get a bit complicated or cognitive. Yes, someone else just raised their hand. We put it down again.
Yes, I wanted to also take the chance to understand a little bit more about what you just said, because what I understood now is that using the technique, like, is always kind of puts you in a certain frame for, like, so it's rather like a tool than to make these things aware, but at the end it's about the awareness and not really about the tool what we're using to create the awareness. And I found it to be something fascinating what you said in the beginning, because indeed there is this short moment you notice the hearing, but it's not really the hearing itself. But then there's this little space between, like, okay, I go into the hearing or I stay a little bit in a distance to it. But then again, I found it a little bit, maybe this will, with developing this technique a little bit more, because I found it then, okay, when I label it as a hearing, I sort of dive into the hearing. Does this make sense? So this is maybe what you said, that with the time, it's short. It's not really like a hearing, but it's just hearing. Like that are not, it's more like a mind, this label not needs to be so strong that I dive into it, but just as a recognition of it, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the use of labels is interesting, because in a way it's when we label it, it's already passed, it's already gone. It's almost like the labels sometimes are a bit late, especially if we make them very like hearing, or like very loud, and it's almost like the moment of hearing appears, and then the thought of the label appears, and we need to label it and think. But as we get more skill, as this becomes more automatic, you can really let the label get very quiet, and then you don't even have to think it anymore. You don't really have to say it. It just becomes the recognition of what appears moment to moment. But in order to get to that point, we use a little bit more this label to slow things down a bit. Okay, this is hearing. So it's kind of like, okay, we're learning to recognize this phenomena of body and mind. Okay, this package of things is hearing, and we slow it down. Okay, hearing, seeing, standing. But as we get better at recognizing very quickly, we can let the things go. And actually, the attention will move so quickly, you can't possibly label everything. It's happening so fast. But if it's easy also to get lost in that, to kind of, we're being very mindful, but we're not really observing a thing. We are just kind of thinking about it, or we are sometimes it happens, you're labeling on autopilot, it's like going, and you feel like, okay, it's going, but then you notice, okay, something is not really clear, or something is not really observing a thing. So then we need to again slow it down to create the right mindfulness. So this term, the right mindfulness, this right clear observation of the thing, is what we are practicing with the labeling. And then we can, as we get skill in this, we don't need any more the labels. They call it momentary concentration. Concentration, which you kind of concentrate on that phenomena for the moment, and then something else, and you concentrate on that for the moment, and for the moment, and then you get the moment very, very quickly. And the more practice you have, the more narrow the moments become, the more phenomena you can observe very clearly. Okay, getting into the very deep philosophical side of it. Yeah, does someone have another question? Also maybe about Vedana?
It was just great what you said, that we can use this Vedana as a sort of compass, always when we going away from the baseline, like, like you said, with the unpleasant or pleasant, we can use this as a moment in our day-to-day life, to get some, mindfulness, like to see what is actually going on here. So I found this really useful. Yeah, really good explanation.
Yeah, this mindfulness bell. Okay. So what do I want to talk about? Yeah, this stuff. So, so kind of tied a little bit in again. So the first thing we need to do is, or to talk a bit about this progress of insight. So the progress of insight is kind of these stages that we go through in the practice, and the more sharp, the more clear the concentration, the mindfulness becomes, where we start to see more of mind and body. So the first job is always to see if we can separate the mind and body, to see if we can see the thinking as thinking, the sensation as the sensation, rather than thinking about things and being everything in parallel and in our story of it. But just to see what's appearing right now as appearances of mind and body. And as we start to see that more, we see how the things are influencing each other. As I see that the mind here, and then the body in the next moment, and the mind again, I see how they are influencing. I see how they are. One mind causes one body. One body type of body causes one mind. Thanks, Jen. See you in 2 weeks. And we see how they are working together, and we see which one comes first, which one comes next, and we see how they are working over time. So the causal links. So it's a bit like, yeah, the experience is continuous, and we are talking to ourselves, and okay, I'm standing here meditating, and then we recognize what's happening. Ah, this is thinking, this is sensation. As we do that more, we see body and mind over time, and we can see how they are influencing each other, how they are, one body is causing one mind, and we see how the system works, how this thing works. And as it becomes more continuous, we see more and more clearly how body and mind is working. And as we see that clearly, we can also make better decisions, because we really get to know ourselves much more deeply. We get to know what we really want, what we don't want, what makes us happy, what makes us not happy. But we also learn to be free of whatever it is with the mindfulness, so that we always have a choice. And yeah, especially with this kind of unpleasant Vedana, we are careful when this appears. And when this appears, usually something follows, some reactionality. And we just make this a moment of mindfulness. Maybe that's a moment where we have a different choice to do something else, to create more space, to act rather than react. So the body and mind is always through the Vedana, through the feelings, talking to each other and moving and causing. And one important thing is when things look very messy, when you can't get this clarity of awareness, the most important thing is just to kind of slow down, forget about the Vedana, forget about trying to observe everything, and just come back to the simplicity of the body. That's why we always come back to just rising, just falling, just lifting, just moving, just putting, just standing. We come back to the simplicity of observing the body, because it is from here, from the body, where we always start. It is the easiest place to create the right mindfulness with the body. And then from there, we can, again, open up and see the rest of everything working. So when in doubt, just come back to the body and just slow things down. Just hearing, just sitting, just touching. And see if you can really just get the moment. So just what is happening right now? What is just the body and mind? The more you see, the more you learn. Forget about what just happened a moment ago. Forget about trying to explore or go deep into something. Forget about how this is going to develop, what the future holds. For the hour of meditation that you do every day, just let this be the moment. Don't even try to somehow get through the hour or win through the time, because then again we are just thinking about the time, the future, the past, and we are referencing that concept. But just let it be the moment. What now? What now? What now? And see more. And that is what we are practicing. So the next week, we will also open up a bit more to the realm of the mind. So just recognize and learn more about the thinking, how it appears, how it disappears, especially when the thinking becomes wanting, when the mind kind of grasps after something that is appearing, whether it's something pleasant it wants more of, whether it's something unpleasant it tries to push away. Just be aware of this process happening. And maybe also throughout the day. Yes. Okay. Maybe one general comment, because this happened during the last course of this Satipatthana course in January, that people felt it was getting more and more complex, and I'm kind of like layering on more and more tasks that you somehow have to keep track of and do all at the same time or something. And this is not really what I'm intending with this. It's more, so every week we're doing something else, and just trust that just this knowledge of what I'm saying, of this idea of Vedana, you don't have to work on this super intensively or try to get it super perfectly and right. Just let this knowledge do its thing. So just do the mindfulness and trust that you keep recognizing Vedana once in a while, and just by knowing about this idea. So you don't need to somehow become very good and try to keep track of everything that is happening, and okay, there's Vedana and body, and make it very analytical and cognitive. No, just the most important thing is just the moment in what's happening right now. And whether you notice Vedana, whether you notice the body, it doesn't matter so much. Just do the mindfulness, keep it very simple, come back to the body. And yeah, no need to over if it's getting complex, or just simplify it, just back to the moment. Yeah, that's important to say. Okay, so yeah, open space for anything you want to say or share about anything.
I just wanted to ask you about the Vedana, if you could, because you said the feeling tone from your perspective might not really completely grasp it. And now, yes, I'm trying to still somehow, it's now a little bit intellectual, but I still try to figure out this Vedana. Is this a constant, is constantly present, but inside of us, or is it a universal Vedana? Like I'm trying to.
Yeah, okay. Just think of it as so we have sensations happening the whole time. We have the thinking happening the whole time. And the Vedana is kind of it comes with every sensation, every thought, and it is just the magnitude of whether it's pleasant or neutral or mildly unpleasant or very unpleasant. Most of the time it's neutral. So it's just something that somehow comes attached to every body and mind appearance. Yes, just that simplicity of it. And yeah, so sometimes you just notice just neutral sensations. Sometimes all those sensations are a bit unpleasant. And when you're doing the mindfulness, sometimes it helps. Okay, I'm, feeling, touching, sitting, hearing, sitting, touching, and then maybe you notice some constriction in the throat. Something happened. Oh, constriction, and then just recognize, unpleasant. And like, this is unpleasant. Okay, something recognize. Okay, and then continue. Okay, and then some thought. Okay, pleasant. Okay, then disappears again. It always changes the Vedana, but it might just serve as a little, as a warning signal or something. Oh, okay, be a bit unpleasant. A bit careful there. Maybe something unpleasant appears more. Okay. Aditya, how are you? What's on your mind?
I mean, a lot of thoughts. This is interesting. I guess I'm trying to understand how Vedana fits in with the labeling practice. I think the thing we did at the very beginning was pretty powerful. I don't know, just a lot of thoughts. Need to get to kind of condense them down to figure out how to apply them, I think.
Nice. Yeah. Good. Yeah, no need to worry about trying to sort it out, just kind of, and yeah, always back to the mindfulness and let it sort itself out. You take what you took from this lecture, and it might point, or you might see something in the meditation that you didn't before, just by having listened to this. No need to make it into a cognitive exercise. But great.
I guess sometimes one of the things that happens as you get deeper in the practice, I've found is it's kind of hard to keep track of kind of what the goal is. Obviously, like the practices are important, but sometimes I feel like I lose sight of kind of what I'm trying to achieve through the practice. Any advice or any thoughts as far as kind of like, I don't want to call it disillusionment, but just generally how to bring yourself back and keep it grounded?
Do you mean during the meditation, or like outside of the meditations, the formal meditation?
I would say outside. I find the meditations to be pretty, it's a lot easier to stay focused and keep it centered. I like outside of meditations, especially when things happen that are outside of your circle of control. I obviously want to apply some certain practices, but I find that sometimes it's tough to bring it back to that. So just curious.
So it's really about what is important to you, and meditation helps us see ourselves more and see what is really important to us, and helps us to kind of maybe simplify what is happening. So for example, you might sit here and there's some thoughts and things appearing of, okay, you maybe lose a bit your center, or you lose this kind of ground, or this clearly knowing, like, oh, I know what I'm doing here, I know what I want, I know who I am, I know how I'm interacting with the situation. Maybe sometimes that gets a bit lost, and we can use a little bit mindfulness in that moment just to kind of simplify, like, okay, I am sitting here, I am seeing, and then often when we just do that, the order returns by itself. The mind and body comes again a bit into balance, and then, okay, then I know what I'm doing. Okay, I'm sitting here and I'm talking. And so whenever you get a bit lost and confused and disillusionment and things, just simplify the thing. Okay, so I'm just sitting. Okay, what now? Okay, I'm talking to the screen. I'm sharing this, and we start again, always back to the simplicity, back to the moment. Yeah.
So I think this makes a ton of sense in the context of during the meditations. I'm curious, I guess, for example, when I think this is good in the topic of this discussion about Vedana, right? So when something happens that shifts the Vedana of your experience to either negative or positive, obviously there's like some type of knee-jerk reaction that happens, whether it's like grasping you spoke about earlier for positive, or some type of projection. And sometimes you'll obviously do that reaction. I'm curious, like once you do that reaction, you notice that, hey, I've grasped for something because of a pleasant Vedana. What is like the next like thought process? Like, I guess like I'm just like curious, like what like obviously sometimes there's like a feeling of guilt, like the cookie example, where you did something that maybe was not good for you. How do you resolve that emotion, or like do you resolve that emotion? What is kind of the way to move forward and process that?
In general, just back to the moment, back to simplicity of what's happening now. Okay, something just appeared and I did something which I don't agree with or don't like or something, and I regret, or maybe it wasn't optimal or whatever. Okay, back to just the simplicity of the moment. Okay, sitting. Okay, guilt appearing. Okay, unpleasant, feels unpleasant. Okay, sitting, and we empower ourselves again in the moment. So if we get stuck in this, oh, I didn't do that, and I didn't do what I wanted, and then we get sucked and we spiraling again in this Vedana, and we just forget the past is already gone. It's already what appeared, and it's already gone. Now it's just memory appearing, and we're back to the moment of what's happening. Okay, just what is now. And then if you bring it back to the moment, you empower yourself in the moment, because the only thing you can do is right here. You can't do something what just happened. You can't change the past. You can only act right here. And so you just bring it back to the moment, and then you do what you can. And sometimes something will stay, something will linger, or the guilt, the unpleasantness lingers, but it's also okay. We accept this. It's fine, and we trust that I just keep this simple and back to the moment, and the thing sorts itself out. Nothing lasts forever. The guilt, the anger, the whatever thing, it runs its course. And we trust this slowly coming back to the balance of mind and body, and not chase after and continuously try fixing it, but actually this moment is the most excellent moment. What can we do now?
I like that. Thank you.
So often with this lecture, for example, like I have no idea what I'm saying. I mean, of course, I prepare the lecture and the slides and have some outline, like, okay, this is what is going to happen. But sometimes I feel, oh, I just talked a bit too fast, or it was a bit unclear what I said, or I said too many things, or okay, just forget about the thing. Like, just okay, what's happening right now? Okay, I'm sitting. Okay, what's the current thing I have to do, I have to deal with, and just back to the simplicity of the moment. Or someone asks me something and I have no idea like what the response should be, and it feels I'm grasping after some knowledge I need to like convey, like, oh, I need to remember something, or I need to, okay, just forget about, okay, what's happening right now in my experience. Okay, I'm sitting, and usually then just from that something comes. Then I know what needs to be done next, and sometimes not, and that's also okay. Kolya.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to add to Atiya's question based on my own experience. Because in the past, I easily got myself into some kind of endless thinking loops. Like when I was very annoyed about something, then I would keep on grinding and grinding and grinding, and I just couldn't let it go. And what I noticed is that two things which really help me now with these type of things where I'm frustrated about myself. The first one is this whole meditation practice, and the way you fantastically explain all of this right now allows me to detach from things a bit more, like see myself, observe myself. That's a better word than like detach. Observing myself. So I'm observing, oh, I'm having this negative and angry thoughts again. And then I can examine that feeling. Why am I having this feeling? And then the next thing which helps me absolutely greatly is that I actively trying to practice loving kindness and compassion in my thinking. And I do that both towards myself and towards others. And so when I recently discovered that in the past I have done something really stupid and actually turned out to be a costly mistake. Is it a life devastating, derailing mistake? No. But it's definitely costly enough to be really, really annoying. And so that was a really good example of having me practicing this. And I have to say, because it was a bit severe, it took me a couple of days. So it was come back and come back and come back. And I even had one not sleepless, but sleep deprived night. It took me a long time. And I realized what I have done. Then I really struggled to fall asleep. But then I actually started to meditate. So I just sat on my bed side and started to meditate, and then trying to really apply, like observing my feelings. It helped a little bit, but here's the thing. This revelation about my mistake is now about a week ago, I would say. I now can deal with it so much more at ease, and because I continued doing this process I just described, and every time it got a little better, every time a little better, and now I can deal with it much better. So it's this observing, examining my feelings and thought, and then also applying a good deal of compassion and loving kindness towards myself. That is a life-changing skill for me now, which I'm so glad I obtained. So that's my experience. I hope it helps a little bit here.
Yes, very wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Kolya. I really like what you said with it's getting a little bit better. Every time you did it, it's getting a little bit better. And this is really the key. We don't have to achieve it today or tomorrow or become perfect human beings, but just by the awareness and learning how it's working, and maybe learning a little bit every day about how better to do something, we're getting a little bit better. And this is how we know if the practice is working. Are we getting better over time? Whether it means, and whatever that means to you, whether it's getting better at relating, whether it's getting better at body, whether it's getting a little bit better at work, a little bit more peaceful, whatever it is that is important to you, because it's different for all of us. But we're getting a little bit better. And yes, as long as we're moving in that direction, that's perfect and that's excellent. And don't have to become perfect and a monk or whatever, but a little bit better, step by step, and just this step and just this step. I like that you said this. Okay, I think we maybe ended here. We have been together for some time. I just want to say, so next week I will be going on a retreat. So the lecture for next weekend I will record tomorrow and send it out. And we will see each other again live in 2 weeks. So if you have any questions before that, try to get them to me before Wednesday would be great, because I'll be going into the retreat 10 days. And we will talk again in 2 weeks.
Have a wonderful retreat, Raima.
Thank you. I always have to forget everything I know, like forget what I think I'm teaching or what I pretend to know, or then just forget about it and back to the
beginner's mind all the time. That's awesome.
Mind.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And let's finish with a little bit chanting. So receive it however you want to. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi Sawakatu Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sangam Namami. Thank you very much, and I wish you a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a good retreat.